become better. And again, welcome to Dee's Place. Welcome to Dee's Place, and today we are celebrating the month of May in Idaho Falls. It's Mother's Day, and so we wanted to do a Mother's Day special to welcome and to honor all mothers around the world with encouraging words, with nuggets, and it brings me great privilege and honor to introduce Miss Maggie Catherine Mangum. She is here today, and she's going to give us some words of wisdom on how to live. All of us, we live in the 21st century, and there's some things that we need to know, and this brings me great privilege, Mother Mangum, to be here with you today in your presence.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So let's begin. I wanted to ask a question. When and where were you born?
In Mount Olive, Mississippi.
Mount Olive, Mississippi. Okay. And what year? What year were you born?
1924.
1924. So
August 15th.
August 15th. Oh, good. Also, so if you don't mind, I know women don't like to tell their age. How old are you, Mother Mangum?
At the moment, 89.
89 years old. 89 years young, I should
Yes.
say. Well, I want you to know you look very beautiful to be 89 years old.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So what brought you here to Idaho Falls, Idaho?
My daughter, Loretta.
And she brought you here? Okay. And how has life been in Idaho Falls, Idaho for you so far?
I guess Idaho Falls is okay for people that like the climate, like the weather. I don't like Idaho Falls.
You don't like it? Why you don't like Idaho Falls?
Well, number one, it's too, I guess, elevated,
Too elevated, okay.
and it's too much snow. Not enough sunny, warm days.
Okay.
So, and when it's dry, it's just dry, you know? So I guess that's the way it is anywhere when it's dry, but
I see.
then when it dries out here.
I see. But I just want to say that I am glad that you're here among us in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and I'm just glad to know that we have such great wisdom in our midst, and so I'm just happy that you're here for, whatever brought you here. I believe the Lord brought you here for a reason, and so I'm just glad to be sitting at your feet today, experiencing some words of wisdom that you would have for all of us today. And so I appreciate you for that. Okay, Mother, let me ask you this question. Of course, today this is the month of May, 2014, and we are celebrating the month of mothers. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is to help all of our mothers around the world, whether in America, whether they're in Africa, China, just giving us some words of wisdom on how to live and perhaps how you see society today. So one of the questions I would like to ask you is, so when did you get married?
I got married in 19, can't even remember when I got married.
Okay. So maybe
1954.
1954 when you first got married. So how was life like during that time for you, as a young married woman in 1954? Of course, segregation, I'm assuming, was still going forward. I believe Martin Luther King, was just maybe perhaps starting. So how was life like back in those early days when you first got married?
To me, life was good.
Okay.
Maybe because I didn't know anything but the South. I was born and raised in the South, and I didn't experience a lot of problems that I have heard that people did.
So you were fortunate then, and so of course when we see pictures of segregation, and so you didn't experience the water holes and the vicious dogs, if you will.
None of those things. None of those vicious things.
Okay. Okay.
It has always from day one. I'm talking about my day one.
Mm-hmm.
Been segregated. I grew up in segregation.
Okay.
And we were farmers.
Okay.
We lived in the country. We farmed. We grew whatever we needed almost.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went to town, we didn't experience those bad things that I have heard that happen in the South.
Okay.
I just don't, personally, I don't know any of those brutal things. I didn't go through that.
Okay. So you were fortunate to not have those experiences.
Well, I'm sure.
Yes. So, so from your marriage, how many children did you have?
I'm the mother of 8 children.
8 children.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. 8 children back in the early 1950s, during this time of segregation. So, what did you do as a mother to make sure that that your 8 children at the time, because you have 8 children, and are they all still living today, or?
No.
Okay. How many living children are still here with us?
6.
6. So during that time, what was?
Let me take that back.
Okay.
5 are living.
5 are living. So what were some of the things that you? Of course, we are talking to many mothers today who perhaps have multiple children and you know, ready to pull their hair out because of the fast-paced society. What were some of the things that you did to instill good self-esteem in your children? Of course, you know, we're living in a time where people are suffering with low self-esteem. We got teenage suicide, divorce, etc. But what were some of those things that you instilled in your children during those times to help them?
Number one, most of my children were born and raised in Washington.
Okay.
And segregation wasn't as outgoing there as it was in the South.
And so,
Of course, I grew up in the South. I didn't experience any problems.
okay.
My sisters and brothers didn't experience like the beatings and the name calling, and
Oh, okay.
we just didn't experience that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
So I can't say much about that because I didn't go through it. And you know, I was there. It was in my day.
Right.
But
Well, so let me ask you, so were there times where perhaps your children perhaps dealt with that, or
No.
had questions about it, or were concerned about segregation during that time? And what was those things that you perhaps helped them to understand about segregation and about themselves as human beings?
all of my children except 3 were born in Washington State.
Okay.
And the 3 that were born in Mississippi came to Washington
Okay.
very young.
Okay.
Very young.
Okay.
They all grew up in Washington. So my children don't know very much about the South.
Okay.
They don't know how segregated it was. They don't know how isolated we were, when I said we, as black people were.
Okay. I understand.
So there's not a lot that I can say, you know, in regards to how I brought them up in that area.
In that area. Okay. But
I brought my children up, number one, you have to be sensitive to your children.
okay.
That's the first thing. You gotta love them, you gotta take care of them, you gotta feed them, you gotta dress them, you got to teach them. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into raising children. You don't just put a dress on a girl and a pair of pants and a shirt on a boy and say, here you go.
Right, because we realize that good self-esteem or good self-image is not just what you put on the outside, like with the $100 tennis shoes, and you got to have the best, and you got to have the biggest toy, or you have to have the baddest outfit. You know, our kids are into fashion, but what you're saying is that good self-esteem and good self-image is inward. It's not.
Exactly,
It's not based upon what you're wearing.
It's something that you teach, something that you learn, something that you grow with.
Okay, that's awesome. And so, And that brings me to even myself growing up. I grew up in a single family home, and I'm the oldest of two brothers and sisters. And I remember those days when my mother would just work, and of course, being young, never really understood the reason why she had to do the things that she had to do. It wasn't until I got older when I understood that, the things that she had to do and the tough discipline, if you will, that we experienced was for our benefit. And so none of us were in jail, and we didn't have babies outside of wedlock because my mother was a strong woman in the South. But so many of our young people today are just growing up which seemingly without any parental guidance. And so what are some of those wisdom, if you will, or nuggets from your personal experience that you could share with mothers who have children of what they can do to make sure that their children are safe, as you just mentioned, from a society perhaps that's promiscuous and with movies and television and violence? What are some of those things that you can share with mothers today to help them?
Number one, you can't shelter your children from these things.
Okay.
Because there's TV,
Right.
there's radio, there's cars. When I grew up, I didn't have a car. My friends didn't have cars until I was in late teens.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff that the children have today that I didn't have growing up. We didn't have, for a long time, we didn't have electricity.
Okay.
We were farmers. We lived in the country. And for years, they weren't running electric lines out in the country.
Mm-hmm.
We used kerosene lamps for light. We burned wood stoves. We burned wood in the fireplace. And we just didn't have all these when I was growing up, we didn't have all these conveniences.
So based upon that then, what would be your wisdom now? Of course, we have those things. We have cell phones. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has an iPad. We live in a fast-paced society where perhaps there's a single mother in the home, and it could be both parents. The hustle and bustle, and now with daycares, perhaps, which I was told at one time was the surrogate mother or the surrogate parent. Our children are in daycares all day. And so with all of those things that we have bombarding us every day, what are some of those things that you can share with mothers to keep their young people or their children grounded and protected? Because you mentioned parents need to protect their children. So what can we do today to make sure that our children are protected in a society that is coming to us at every angle with all kind of gadgets and technology, etc., which I believe maybe perhaps create separation? So how do you feel about that?
Number one, all of this stuff that you mentioned starts in the home.
Okay.
You don't wait till your children get 6 years old to go when they start to school, to start training them, to start teaching them.
Okay.
You start when they're born. You start when they start walking, when they're crawling, when they're pulling up on the couch, on the chair, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you start.
Okay.
You start when they're on your lap. Whether you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding,
Mm-hmm.
you start training them then and there.
Okay.
So you don't wait till they go to school or till they get a certain age. When they go to school, they already exposed to a lot of stuff. By the time they 6 years old or 7 years old and start school, they already exposed.
Right.
And what I did, we trained our children at home. We taught them right and wrong. We taught them how to treat each other, how to take care of each other. There's my oldest daughter right there, Loretta.
Mm-hmm.
When Loretta was just a little girl, now I already had 3 sons when she was born.
Okay.
And those boys, they took care of her. They loved her. They watched out for her.
Okay.
They even taught her how to walk.
Okay.
I can remember times when my two oldest boys would, one boy would get behind her and hold up her hands, hold up her arms like, and the other one would get in front of her on the floor and take her feet with her hand and make the steps. They taught her how to walk. They taught her how to talk. They taught her how to share because they shared with her. So she was never alone. And when she went to school, she wasn't alone. Even though her brothers at that time were not in the same school she was in. Her brothers still looked out for her. She had friends in school, she had teachers in school. And another thing that helped is how I prepared them, how I sent them to school, how I took them to school. You know, I know this from experience. The more you put into your children, you put into them. That's the more that other people is gonna look out for them.
I see.
That's Miss Mangum's daughter, don't mess with her.
I see.
That's Otis's sister, don't mess with her.
Because they saw you then, that was a security, if you will, for the children as they went out into the world, because they knew that you were attuned and attentive to their every way of being. And
Exactly.
so that created a awesome picture for everybody
And
to see.
if they had a difficult day at school, a fight or pick on or whatever, the teachers knew whatever happened today, they knew Mrs. Mangum gonna be here tomorrow.
Okay.
And Mrs. Mangum was there. I mean, at school. See what's going on, why it's going on.
I see. So there was a constant reinforcement that you instill in this, even in the school with the teachers.
Exactly.
Like you said, they knew that whatever happened to a Mangum child, that Mother Mangum was going to be here and she was going to be on top of it and to make sure that things was right. That's good. That's good. So, how do you see society today versus yesterday? Do you see us getting better or worse?
Well, I can't say that we are changing that much, but time changed. Time brings about a change.
Okay.
When my children were growing up, we didn't have a lot of daycare.
Okay.
We didn't have, we didn't have a lot of cars and stuff. We had a car most of the time, but for years when my children were growing up, we didn't even own a car. But it's not what you have or don't have so much that matters. It's how you use what you do have. How you value what you do have.
So, in other words, being happy and content to what you have right now and making the best of it.
Yeah. I can remember when I shopped at Goodwill a lot. Buy clothes, take them home, wash them, press them, put them on, send my children to school, looking good.
So it wasn't
But didn't nobody know I bought the clothes at Goodwill.
Right, so I was about to say, so it didn't matter how much, $100 shoes or $50 dress or $70 pair of pants.
Well, that wasn't happening.
I see.
That was not happening.
I see. And that brings back memories even growing up. Of course, I'm the oldest, and my brothers used to be upset because everything that my mom bought for me, of course, was handed down to them. But like you said, they were clean, they were pressed. We ironed our clothes. My mother didn't just send us off to school, looking any kind of way, because we represent, Stokes, So that brings that's some good wisdom that you're giving us, to know that we don't have to spend all of the finances that we have, on our backs. That is, once again, it's not what you wear, it's who you are and how you feel about yourself.
True. And one thing that helps children going to school or wherever they are is what you teach them at home. You can teach your children good manners, good behavior. You can teach your children sharing. You can teach them to care for others. You don't have to wait till if you wait for them to go to school and learn these things, you're too late.
Right.
You're behind.
Right.
They're behind.
Especially in this day and time where, they coming out the womb now with cell phones in their hands, practically. And so that's a good. So that brings us to another point. How do you feel about discipline? How do you feel about discipline? Johnny's at Walmart and he's falling all over the floor, hollering and screaming because he saw a candy bar on the shelf, and now with different strict laws and rules about discipline, how do you feel about discipline?
Discipline is very necessary. And I discipline my children, we did, me and my husband discipline our children at home. But I want you to know this. If you train your children at home, you're not going to have a lot of trouble out of them when you get them out in public. And most of the children you see falling out in the store and carrying on, that's what they do at home when they don't get their way. Now, Corey, you know who Corey is.
Yes, I do.
We were in the store one day in Bon Marché. You know Bon Marché?
I don't.
Well, that's a big clothing store.
Okay.
And so he was just gonna act silly with his mom. And we were right by a belt rack.
Okay.
So she just reached up on this belt rack and get a belt and work on him right there in the store. She didn't wait till he get back home.
Okay. So right now, discipline, this is what we need.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, it's how you do it.
Okay.
It's not what you do all the time.
I see.
It's how you
It's
do
how you discipline.
it. Yes.
Not what you do, is how you do it. Okay, that's important.
So, for the most part, if you train your children at home, you're not going to have a lot of trouble out of them when they go out in public. And most of the children you see acting crazy when they get out in public. That's how they act at home.
I see.
But occasionally, they will try you. So, Corey, his mom, we were all in Bon Marché, a big store, clothing store. And he just decided to try his mom. So we were right by a belt rack, so she just reached up on this belt rack in the store and get a belt and work on it.
Did anybody call the police?
Nobody called the police.
Okay. So in this society in which we live in, we know that, again, I came from a single family home. With the rise of the divorce rate maybe increasing in this day and time, how important it is for, now of course we are celebrating the month of May, Mother's Day, how important it is for the father in the home.
Fathers are necessary, very important. And I know all homes don't operate the same way.
True.
Well, my parents, I want to think Papa had the last word. But just say, for instance, if I want to go to Susie's house.
Okay.
And I said, Mom, can I go to Susie's house? She said, go ask your dad.
Okay.
I go, Papa, can I go to Susie's house? Ask your mom. She told me to ask you. Go ahead. They didn't disagree with each other.
I see.
I never ever, and I know they had problems. They had to have problems. They had to have problems, but I never heard them argue. Never.
I see. So it's important for husbands and wives, even when they're rearing their children, to show love and respect for each other?
Of course. Of course. I never heard my dad and my mom call each other anything except mama and papa. There wasn't no honey, baby, darling, and whatever else they want to call it. It was always mama and papa.
Right.
There was so much so in our home till the neighborhood. They were just like, my parents were just like the neighborhood parents.
Oh, I see.
Children respected my parents in the home and in the church. Wherever they went, they got respect.
And that brings me to, I believe Hillary Clinton said that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think that just what you're saying, that because of the reputation you had as a family, and a tight-knit family, you became an example for the whole neighborhood to follow.
You can say that. You can say that. But you know, I didn't grow up in the city.
I see.
We grew up in the country. And everybody looked out for everybody. It wasn't like everybody disciplined everybody's child, but everybody was looking out to see if that child was in danger, they were going to the rescue. And most of the time, what they did, my parents and other parents they just say, Mr. Jones saw me acting crazy somewhere. He might not say anything to me. I might not even know he saw me.
Right.
But when I got home, Mama and Papa knew.
Right.
So Mr. Jones went and told them. And they wasn't tattling. They were looking out for the welfare of their community, for their neighbors' children.
And did your parents believe you or believe Mr. Jones when you came home and they addressed you? Because sometimes we live. I can't believe she said that about my daughter. Let me go and tell her something, thing or two. Did you experience that too, or?
No, my parents, I know they had a good understanding with each other. Mm-hmm. They trusted each other. Right. They had to love each other. I never heard my parents argue, never. I never heard them cross words.
Or even with the neighbors, perhaps that came to you with a negative report concerning something that you did or that they saw you did.
Well, I can't recall that, I can't recall having a neighbor tattle on me. But if they did, when I got home, my dad would say, Maggie, so-and-so, Mr. Jones said that you were misbehaving on the way home from school. What was going on?
I see.
So then I had to give an explanation.
Right. Quick, fast, in a hurry, I'm imagining.
Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I see. And so let me just ask you a question. So what about, of course, many viewers will be watching this segment, celebrating mothers. What about the aspect of, because we live in a fast-paced society, both parents is working, and we have a lot of TV, we have microwaves now for preparing meals. And what do you feel? How do you feel about that? Or what are some of the things that you can share with mothers, even in preparation of meals, and to make sure that they have healthy children and coming up?
Well, when my children were growing up, we didn't have microwaves.
Okay.
We had a wood burning stove.
Okay.
We cooked every meal on the stove. And we didn't eat a lot of leftovers because almost, just say, if we made breakfast, and just say there was 3 or 4, 5, 6 biscuits left from breakfast.
Okay.
We had biscuits almost every day, every morning for breakfast. It wasn't toast, it wasn't waffles, it wasn't
Okay.
pancakes, it was
Okay.
biscuits.
Okay.
So, if somebody was hungry we had breakfast in the morning, And what we, in the South, we ate at noon, and we called that dinner. Whereas in the city, or even nowadays, in any place, what we eat at noon is lunch and dinner at night.
Okay.
But when I was growing up in the South, in the country, breakfast in the morning, dinner at noon, and supper
Oh, okay.
at night.
So supper and dinner were two separate things. So I always thought supper was dinner, but in the South, during your time of growing up or raising your children, it was breakfast in the morning, dinner at noon, and supper in the evening.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's good. Did you have any complaints concerning your cooking?
No, I didn't. Number one, we grew a lot of the foods that we ate.
Okay.
We had cows to milk. We had hogs to kill
For meat and bacon.
that sort of thing. We grew chickens, the hens laid eggs.
I'm getting hungry.
We had our own chickens,
Okay.
our own eggs, our own milk and butter, and a lot of stuff. And then besides that, we grew vegetables in the garden. And we always had fresh corn because we were farmers and we grew corn. We had just about any vegetable or melon that you want to eat in those days. There's probably something out there now that we didn't grow when I was growing up.
I see. So let me ask you this question now. I'm kind of switching gears just a little bit. So there's a woman out there, a young woman out there, and she is contemplating or wanting to get married, to have a wonderful life and to start a family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Through your marriage and through some of the experience that you have, what are some of those things that you will share with that woman today who is ready and wanting to get married and looking for that ideal mate, if you will, to spend the rest of her life with?
Well, if there was a single lady and wanting to get married, I wouldn't have a lot of information for her. Number one, I would want her not to go running off looking for the man. Let the man find her.
And why is that?
Well, because if there's a relationship, he's going to be the beginning of it.
Okay.
If there's a marriage, he's going to be the husband. If there's children, he's going to be the father. If he's any kind of man at all, he's going to be the head of the family.
Okay. 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 So your advice to women out there is not to go looking for him, but allow him the opportunity to look for her.
And and I want you to know this. It's not a lot of looking in this thing. You live the life, and when the time is right, he will be there.
So in other words, graduate from high school, go to the military or go to college, pursue your career, and if it happens, it happens.
It happens.
I see.
But I think sometimes, parents can hinder their children,
Okay.
and especially girls.
And how so? How's that?
Well, for the most part, parents are more watchful over their daughters than the boys, because they want to know who that guy is that's taking my daughter to the movie
Okay.
or to the birthday party or whatever.
Okay.
They want to know who he is, what his family's like, what he does, if he's going to school or working or whatever, or church.
I see. And of course, living in this day and time, maybe sometime that in some cases we have parents who are focused and attuned to what's going on, and then of course, unfortunately, we have some parents perhaps or some mothers or fathers, if you will, who may not be as attuned to that, and those are things that they need to be mindful of when their children are dating, if you will. So that's some great wisdom for all of us who are single and perhaps are waiting to experience marriage, if you will. And a single woman out there, may be at a crossroad, or what do I do? I'm getting older. Perhaps I want to have a family, and so I think that it maybe perhaps creates some desperation, if you will, on her behalf, because perhaps the clock is ticking, and wanting to get married. But you're saying, do the things that you love to do, keep striving to better yourself, and once again, if it happens, it happens.
That does, right.
Very good. Well, I thank you, Mother Mangum, for your time and allowing us in your beautiful home just to hear some wisdom, and we hope that the viewers who are watching these plays will get some nuggets that will help them as better wives, as better mothers, to raise up a generation of individuals who are strong, who have good self-esteem. I know one of the things that even for my own mother, I received this card from her, and of course we just and I received this card on Valentine's. Matter of fact, it came the day before Valentine's, and I just wanted to read this card in dedication to my own mother, Doris Brunson. If she's out there watching, I hope she is. And it says, "Son, you make me proud." And she probably won't believe that I still have this card, because it's been years ago since I had this card. But it says, "You are one good man, the kind of role model our community is always looking for." And I just wanted to take a minute today to say how proud I am to know you and have the privilege of calling you my son. Happy Valentine's Day. And so I always kept this card because some of the things that you mentioned today reminded me of my own mother. She worked hard to raise us and to make sure we had food, and we didn't know what it meant to be poor. We didn't know, we couldn't even spell the word. We didn't know that we didn't have, because she worked hard to take care of us. So I just wanted to say thank you, Mother Mangum, for sharing your love and your wisdom to women all over the world. And hopefully through this segment, someone will understand and know that they're not alone in their educating their children and in this walk of life. And so we just here at these plays just to let people know that you're welcome, regardless of who you are and your love. So Mother Mangum, so how do you feel today? How do you feel? I mean, with a woman with wisdom, and you raised 8 children. So how do you feel today? Perhaps how you raised your children. How do you feel today?
I feel like I did my best. I gave them, I taught them what I knew.
Okay. So is there, if you could do it again, is there something that you feel maybe that you can change or?
Yeah, if you're growing, you can always change or add something.
Okay, and what would be some of those things that you would change or add? Now, looking back on those years, what are some of the things that you would change or add?
Well, in my life, growing up, raising my children,
yes,
I don't think I would change anything, but just give more reinforcement to what we already have.
Okay. And when you say reinforcement, what do you mean reinforcement?
Well, like
for those who are watching today,
teaching and training.
And you said that you would give more of those teaching and training.
Exactly.
Looking back on it today.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you don't do something, if you don't change something or add something, most likely you're not growing.
I see.
And
because the change is an indication that you're growing.
I think, we can become stagnant.
Okay.
And lose touch with your family.
I see.
And I think staying in touch with your children, and parents with some mother and father in touch, and both of them in touch with the children.
I see.
I think that's important.
Well, very important. I agree with you. So what are some of your hobbies? I mean, what are some of the things that you like to do?
Well, right now I'm not doing anything. I don't, but I like to read. I used to sew quilts.
Okay.
I enjoy cooking.
Okay.
And I enjoy keeping my house clean. When my children were growing up, I enjoyed my children. I enjoyed them.
I see.
They wasn't just a number.
I see.
That was my child.
And I'm glad you said that too, because we live in a society that can be so miserable. You know, I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm not living like the Joneses, I don't have a nice car, or I'm not married to the right person, or whatever the case may be. I'm glad that you said that you enjoyed your children. You enjoyed the life that you had.
There was a time when we didn't have a TV in the house. And when we got our first television, I thought that my children were going to be so hooked on TV that they wouldn't run out to play.
Okay.
But they come home in the evening, put their books down, change clothes, and hit the door. They were out on the ball field or doing whatever they wanted to do outside.
That's interesting you said that, because we don't see, at least I don't, we don't see a lot of kids just playing outside like they used to be. And so I'm glad that even having a television in your home for the first time, it didn't cause them to just be glued to this television, but they enjoyed the outdoors.
They did.
And I believe also, if we can get our kids more active on the outdoors, we won't have issues with childhood diabetes and children having high blood pressure and just be in sickness that bombard our children today, if they would just get out, like you said, and just have fun. And so that's something important that parents need to know. When Johnny or Sue comes home, turn the TV off, and motivate them to enjoy themselves and
well, if they are motivated when they come home, at least my children, when they came home from school, they weren't thinking about TV.
I see.
They come home, put their books down, change clothes, and hit the door.
I see.
They were outside playing with the neighborhood children.
I see.
So we had an area just a little ways from my house where the kids got together after school and played ball and did whatever sports they wanted to do. And you would think I started to say you would think they had enough play at school, but they weren't really playing at school.
I see.
They were working.
I see.
And when they come home, between the time they get home and dinner time, that's when they play.
I see. I see.
So I didn't have any problem with my children until they and then I can't say I had problems then. When they got early teens,
sure.
Because what I did with my children, or what we did, we cleaned our house. We washed the walls, we washed the stove, we washed whatever was dirty.
Now you can't get them to wash the dishes without an argument. And
exactly.
So
But we did that every Saturday, not one Saturday.
Okay.
Every Saturday.
You kept them busy.
We did that.
You kept them busy. That's awesome.
And then everyone that was old enough took his or her turn washing the dishes at night. I didn't have a dishwasher. I didn't buy a dishwasher.
They were the dishwasher.
They were the dishwasher.
Yes, ma'am.
See, if I had a dishwasher, had one, or had bought one, all they have to do is scrap the dishes up and put them in the dishwasher and turn it on, and they're gone.
Okay.
All of my children know how to keep house. All of my
That's interesting.
children can cook something.
Oh wow. Which I'm glad you brought that up, because many of our young people and young adults are growing up. They don't know how to cook and clean or iron. The practical everyday living. They're missing that. They're missing that important ingredient. And so when they step into a marriage, and then they're missing some of those things, and which perhaps can create an issue down the road, because they lack those fundamentals, cooking and cleaning and basic things. And so I'm glad you said that you made sure that all of your children were involved, and so when they finally left the home, they were self-sufficient. They were able to take care of themselves.
Exactly.
And so that's an outstanding parental wisdom on your part. And so once again, Mother, we thank you for your words of wisdom, and what an awesome gift you are to all of us. And we pray that you have many more experiences and continue to teach us as we strive and keep developing in our own life, in our own careers, if you will, or marriage or family. We just thank you for once again pouring yourself and opening yourself up to the world and helping us live better lives. So once again, we appreciate you and we thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You can't be no more surprised than I am.
Oh, where's that phone at? Oh, that's gonna be a problem. Catherine.
C-A-T-H-E-R-I.
Right, and what's your last name?
Mangum.
Mang.
M-A-N-G.
Welcome to Dee's Place, where everyone is someone. And
Start over.
Sorry,
You want to
okay.
look here? I'm not here.
okay,
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at you.
You're
I'm
looking
at
here or her?
So, and when it's dry, it's just dry,
If I sit right there.
Can't y'all come over here and sit?
Okay, because she's on the phone, so we just got phone.